If you have a 70s Ford and your power steering sounds like this, I might have a solution for you. These 70s Fords are notorious for having some whiny steering. They whine more than boomers when they see an LS swap on Facebook. It's bad. I've fought with the power steering on this Bronco and my other one multiple times over. At some points it was so bad that fluid was literally squirting out of the reservoir onto the bottom of the hood because there was so much air in the system. Traditionally, people tell you, hey, jack your front end up, put it on jack stands, and turn the tires from lock to each side. That's gonna bleed the system. Some people even take it a step further and say, hey, disconnect your tie rod, that way your steering box goes full lock to lock and bleed the system. I've tried both of those. Nothing worked until I found this method. Ever since then, I've used it on multiple vehicles with the same steering box, and it's worked every time.
60% of the time, it works every time.
Steering boxes like this that were made between 76 and 79 are mounted on the frame at a bit of an angle, as you can see on my Bronco. The problem is the pressure and return lines on the steering box are not the highest point in the system, so you end up getting an air bubble that gets trapped in your power steering box. Because that steering box has air trapped in it, you're never going to be able to bleed it properly just turning left to right on jacks. Instead, what you have to do is take that steering box and tip it to where those hydraulic lines are the highest point in the system. That's gonna allow that air to escape and get a proper bleed. Now this job is kind of awkward, but simple, like me. What you're gonna do is disconnect your pitman arm from your drag link, loosen up those 3 bolts, and then rotate the entire box away from the frame and up to try and get those hydraulic lines to be the highest point in this portion of the system. An important note, you must keep the hydraulic lines connected while you are doing all this. We're gonna need them fully installed in order to bleed it. For the next step, you have a couple options. You can either crank the engine up, or you can disconnect the coil wire. That way you can turn your engine over with the starter without it actually firing up. Or you can get a drill and adapt it to the power steering pump and rotate the power steering pump with a drill. Every time I've done this, whenever I start spinning the pump, this thing just sucks down probably a half a quart or more power steering fluid, which tells you how big that air bubble is. Whatever method you choose is up to you, but the goal for all 3 is the same thing, to displace that air in your power steering box. By repositioning that power steering box to where the lines are the highest point in the system, we've allowed the air to escape through the power steering lines and replaced it with fluid. That's gonna displace that big air pocket stuck in your power steering box and give you a much better bleed. So hopefully that helps you get rid of that annoying power steering whine that these things are famous for. Also, because I know somebody in the comments will bring it up, yes, the Saginaw conversion is very worthwhile. It's worth doing. I haven't done it on this Bronco yet because it just doesn't need it. It turns great, even sitting at a standstill on asphalt. So haven't needed it yet, but we'll probably do it anyways.